Okay, so you know how you've been sending us all this interesting stuff?
Yeah.
Well, we've been looking at it, and we're calling this a deep dive.
Yeah, a deep
We're going
dive.
to take all this stuff and kind of boil it down to the main things you should know.
Yeah, try to find the good stuff in there.
Yeah, and today we're taking a look at Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic.
Yeah, it's one of those books people are always talking about.
Right.
So we're going to see what the fuss is all about. And it claims there's a secret to success in there.
A secret, huh?
Yeah, that's what it says.
Well, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, so this book is interesting because it came about because Andrew Carnegie,
Oh, wow, Carnegie.
yeah, the steel guy,
Yeah.
he challenged Napoleon Hill to figure out what makes people successful.
Oh, wow, so this was like a project.
Yeah, he wanted like a formula for success.
Interesting.
Yeah, and he wanted Napoleon Hill to go out and interview all these really successful people.
Like a who's who of success.
Yeah, exactly. And then share it with everyone, especially people who maybe didn't have all the advantages in life.
Oh, that's a good point.
So Carnegie really believed anyone could be successful if they knew the right stuff.
Sounds like a pretty ambitious project.
Oh, yeah. This took like 20 years for Hill to put together.
Wow.
And the book says this secret works for all sorts of things, not just money.
Really?
Yeah, like relationships. Even this one clergyman used it to make a ton more money.
Oh, wow. I'm definitely curious now.
Yeah. So the big question is, what is this secret?
Yeah, and will we recognize it right away?
Maybe, or maybe it'll become clear as we go along.
Well, let's dive in and see.
Okay, so Hill starts off talking about having a definite purpose.
A definite purpose. Okay.
Yeah, he says it's not enough to just wish for something.
Oh, so you got to be specific about what you want.
Yeah, you have to be crystal clear about it.
I like that.
Yeah, and he tells this story about Edwin C. Barnes, who wanted to work with Thomas Edison.
Oh, wow. Edison, that's a big name.
Yeah, and not just work for him, but be his business partner.
Oh, wow. So he was aiming high.
Oh, yeah, and the thing is, Barnes didn't know Edison at all,
Yeah.
and he didn't even have the money to get to him.
Oh, so there were some obstacles.
Yes, some major obstacles,
Yeah.
but Barnes was so determined.
Wow.
He actually snuck onto a freight train to get to Edison's lab.
He what?
Yeah, it's called riding the blind baggage.
Wow. That's dedication.
Oh, yeah. And when Barnes finally got to Edison, he looked so determined
Yeah.
that Edison gave him a chance.
He saw something in him.
Yeah, Edison believed that people who really want something are more likely to succeed.
That makes sense.
And the thing is, Barnes already saw himself as Edison's partner.
Even before he actually was.
Yeah, in his mind, it was already a done deal.
So it's like that belief kind of made it happen.
Yeah, that's the power of a definite purpose.
It's not just wanting, it's like knowing it's going to happen.
Exactly. And Hill says it has to be more than just a wish. It has to be like an obsession.
An obsession, okay.
Yeah. And you got to have a plan, and you got to keep working at it.
So it's not just about the thinking, it's about the doing too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what comes next?
Well, next up is persistence.
To persistence, okay.
Yeah, and Hill tells this great story about Mr. Darby and gold mining.
Oh, this sounds interesting.
Yeah, so Darby and his uncle found this vein of gold.
They hit the jackpot.
Yeah, they were so close, but then the vein disappeared.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and they got discouraged, and they sold their equipment and gave up.
They quit.
Yeah, and guess what?
What?
The guy who bought their equipment found the gold just 3 feet further down.
Oh, no, they were so close.
I know, it's brutal, right?
Yeah.
But Darby learned a huge lesson from that.
Yeah, about not giving up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And later on, he got into selling life insurance.
Life insurance, okay.
Yeah, and he swore he would never quit because of rejection.
He remembered that gold mine.
Exactly. And he ended up selling over $1 million in life insurance every year.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. And he said it was all because of that lesson he learned from quitting too early.
So basically, failure can be a good teacher sometimes.
Oh, yeah. I can show you what not to do.
Yeah, and sometimes success is right around the corner.
Exactly.
Right.
And Hill says a lot of successful people had their biggest breakthroughs right after a big failure.
Interesting.
Yeah. And to show you how powerful desire can be, he tells another story about Mr. Darby's uncle.
Okay, another Darby story.
Yeah, this time it involves a little girl who really wanted 50 cents.
50 cents. Okay.
Yeah, and Darby's uncle was known for having a bad temper.
Oh.
Yeah, but this little girl comes up to him and says, "My mammy's got to have that 50 cents.
Wow, she didn't hold back.
Nope. And the uncle was so taken aback by her intensity
Yeah.
that he just gave her the money.
He just gave in.
Yeah, Hill uses this to show how a really strong desire can make things happen.
It can even overcome a bad temper.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've got definite purpose and persistence and intense desire. What else is there?
Well, Hill talks about Autosuggestion.
Autosuggestion? Hmm.
Yeah, he says that our minds are like magnets,
Uh-huh.
and they attract the things we think about most.
Oh, so if you're always thinking about being poor, you're more likely to stay poor.
Yeah, and if you're always thinking about being rich,
You're more likely to get rich.
exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And he'll pull even toward the word impossible out of his dictionary.
Yay! What?
Yeah, to symbolize that anything is possible.
Wow, that's pretty symbolic.
Yeah, and he lays out this 6-step formula for turning your desires into money.
Okay, a 6-step formula. Let's hear it.
Okay, so first you have to write down exactly how much money you want.
Be specific. Okay.
Yeah, then you decide what you're going to give in return for that money.
You got to give something to get something.
Exactly. Then you set a deadline for when you want to have that money.
A deadline. Okay.
Yeah, and then you write down a plan for how you're going to get it.
A plan. Okay.
Yeah, and then you write all of this down in a clear statement.
A statement of purpose.
Yeah, and you read it out loud twice a day, once in the morning and once at night.
Wow, that's a lot of reading.
Yeah, but the key is you have to believe it when you're reading it.
You got to feel it.
Exactly.
So you're basically programming your mind for success.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Interesting.
And Hill says this is how you communicate your desire to your subconscious mind.
The subconscious mind. Okay.
Yeah, and the subconscious mind is super powerful. It can help make things happen.
So you got to get your subconscious on board with your goals.
Yeah, exactly. And that brings us to the principle of faith.
Faith. Okay.
Yeah, Hill says faith is a state of mind, and you can build it up through autosuggestion.
So by believing it, you make it more likely to happen.
Exactly. He even talks about Gandhi.
Oh, wow, Gandhi.
Yeah, he says Gandhi's faith helped him achieve incredible things.
Yeah, he led a whole movement without violence.
Exactly.
So how do you actually build up this faith?
Well, Hill gives a 5-point formula for self-confidence.
Okay, 5 points for self-confidence.
Yeah, so first, you got to force yourself to take action towards your goal.
Okay, so no more procrastinating?
Nope. Then you spend 10 minutes every day thinking about being self-confident.
Oh, like visualize yourself succeeding.
Exactly. And then you remember that anything you think about long enough will eventually show up in your life.
So thoughts become reality.
Yeah. Then you write down your main goal and keep working at it until you feel confident.
Okay, so a written reminder and consistent action.
Yeah. And lastly, you make sure all your actions are based on truth and justice.
So no shady business.
Exactly.
So basically you build up your self-confidence and that helps you have faith in your ability to achieve your goals.
Yeah. And when you have faith, your subconscious mind is more likely to cooperate.
It all ties together.
Exactly. And to show how powerful an idea combined with faith can be.
Okay.
Hill tells the story of Charles M. Schwab and the creation of U.S. Steel.
Oh, wow. U.S. Steel, that's a huge company.
Yeah, a lot of people had tried to convince J.P. Morgan to create a steel trust.
J.P. Morgan, wow.
Yeah, but no one could convince him.
He was a tough nut to crack.
Yeah, but Schwab came along, and he had this clear vision for U.S. Steel, and he believed in it so strongly.
He had that faith.
And he presented it to Morgan with such conviction.
Like he knew it was going to work.
Yeah, and he even showed Morgan handwritten figures of how much money they could make.
Wow, he was prepared.
Yeah, and Morgan was convinced.
He bought it hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah, and U.S. Steel was born, and it ended up making a profit of something like $600 million.
600 million, wow.
Yeah, that's the power of a great idea combined with faith.
So it's not just about the idea, it's about how you present it and how much you believe in it.
Exactly.
So we've talked about desire, faith, ideas. What's next?
Okay, so then Hill talks about specialized knowledge.
Specialized knowledge, okay.
Yeah, he says that knowledge by itself isn't enough.
You got to know how to use it.
Yeah, you got to know how to apply it to your specific goals.
So it's not just about being smart, it's about being strategic.
Exactly. He uses the examples of Thomas Edison and Henry Ford.
2 more giants of industry.
Yeah, neither of them had much formal education.
Really?
Yeah, but they both learned everything they needed to know about their fields.
So they were self-taught.
Yeah, and they were constantly learning new things.
So learning shouldn't stop after school.
Exactly. Ilika says successful people are always learning.
Lifelong learners.
Yeah, and he says employers love to see people who are still learning.
It shows initiative.
Yeah, it shows you're ambitious and you want to improve.
Makes sense.
He even tells this story about a guy who lost his job at a grocery store.
Okay.
Yeah, and he decided to learn bookkeeping.
Bookkeeping, okay.
Yeah, and then he started his own business using those skills.
He turned a setback into an opportunity.
Exactly. And then Hill talks about the idea of a merchandising specialist.
A merchandising specialist? What's that?
It's someone who helps people market their skills.
Oh, like a career coach.
Yeah, kind of.
Interesting.
Yeah, Hill says there's a lot of potential in that field.
Makes sense. Everyone needs help marketing themselves.
Exactly. So it's
Yeah.
not just about having knowledge, it's about having the right knowledge.
And knowing how to apply it.
Exactly.
So how do you go from knowledge to actually making a plan?
That's where imagination comes in.
Imagination, okay.
Yeah. Hill says everything starts with an idea.
So you got to be able to think outside the box.
Yeah. And he talks about two kinds of imagination.
Two kinds, okay.
Yeah, there's synthetic imagination, which is taking existing ideas
Mm.
and combining them in new ways.
Okay, like remixing.
Yeah. And then there's creative imagination, which is like tapping into a higher source of inspiration.
Oh, like divine inspiration or something.
Yeah, kind of.
Interesting.
Yeah. And Hill says you got to use your imagination to come up with plans.
So you got to be able to see the possibilities.
Yeah, to see how you can turn your desire into something real.
And how do you do that?
Well, Hill says you got to write it down.
Write down your vision.
Yeah, both your desire and your plan.
It's like giving it a physical form.
Exactly. And then he tells this interesting story about an old kettle.
An old kettle, okay.
Yeah. So this clerk buys an old doctor's outfit.
A doctor's outfit, okay.
Yeah. And it comes with this kettle and a paddle and a secret message.
A secret message.
Yeah. And the message tells you how to make gold using the kettle.
Oh, wow. Like alchemy.
Yeah, kinda. But Hill says the real value wasn't in the kettle or the message.
It was the idea.
Exactly. And he asks the reader what the young man added to the instructions to make the kettle work.
What did he add?
Well, Hill doesn't say it outright,
Okay.
but he implies that it was all the principles we've been talking about.
The desire, the faith, the persistence.
Exactly. And the story goes on to say that this kettle led to a huge fortune.
Wow. So that one idea really paid off.
Yeah, and it benefited all kinds of people.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then Hill tells the story of Dr. Frank Gonzalez and his $1 million sermon.
$1 million sermon. Wow.
Yeah, Gonzalez wanted to start a new kind of college where students would learn by doing.
Oh, that's a cool concept.
Yeah, but he needed $1 million to get it started.
$1 million. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, but he had so much faith in his vision.
He believed it would happen.
Yeah, and he gave this incredible sermon where he laid out his plan.
And asked for the money.
Yeah, and the very next day, someone gave him the whole $1 million.
Wow. That's amazing.
Hill says that Gonzalez already saw that $1 million in his mind.
He visualized it.
Exactly, and that's what helped make it happen.
So it's like the universe responded to his belief.
Yeah, and then Hill shifts gears a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, he starts talking about the planning of the sale of services.
The sale of services. Okay.
Yeah, which is basically how to market yourself and your skills.
So this is for anyone who wants to get ahead in their career.
Exactly, and he lists 13 qualities of a good leader.
13 qualities. Okay.
Yeah, things like courage, self-control, justice, decisiveness.
Wow. That's a lot to remember.
Yeah, and then he talks about 10 reasons why leaders fail.
So you can learn from other people's mistakes.
Exactly, and he says that leadership is changing.
How so?
It's becoming less about giving orders and more about getting people to buy in.
Oh, so more collaborative.
Exactly, and when you're looking for a job, Hill says you should have a written brief.
A brief, what's that?
It's like a document that lays out all your qualifications.
Oh, like a super resume.
Yeah, kind of. And he says you should be very clear and detailed.
Don't be afraid to brag a little.
Yeah. And he even suggests offering to work for free for a while to prove yourself.
Wow, that's bold.
Yeah. But it can be really effective.
I guess so.
And he emphasizes how important it is to choose a career you love.
Do what you love.
Exactly.
Makes sense. If you're passionate about it, you'll work harder.
Exactly. And then he gives this formula for perfect salesmanship.
Okay. A formula for salesmanship.
Yeah, it's quality plus quantity plus spirit of cooperation.
Quantity cooperation. Okay.
Yeah. Quality means doing your work well. Quantity means doing a lot of it.
Okay. So work hard and work smart.
Yeah. And spirit cooperation means working well with others.
Teamwork.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And then he lists a bunch of reasons why people fail to market themselves effectively.
Okay. So what are some of the pitfalls?
Oh, things like not having a clear purpose, not having enough ambition, not being disciplined enough.
Yeah, those sound familiar.
Yeah, and he talks about the importance of knowing your worth.
Not underselling yourself.
Exactly, and he gives 28 questions for self-analysis.
28 questions. Wow.
Yeah, to help you figure out what you're good at, what you need to work on.
That's pretty thorough.
Yeah, so then he gets into the importance of decision.
Decision, okay.
Yeah, he says indecision is a bad habit.
It can hold you back.
Yeah, and he says being decisive takes courage.
Yeah, it's scary to make a big decision.
Yeah, but it's necessary if you want to be successful.
So no more waffling.
Exactly. He even talks about the guys who signed the Declaration of Independence.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they risked their lives by making that decision.
That was a huge decision.
Yeah, and then he circles back to persistence.
Persistence again, okay.
Yeah, he says there's no substitute for it.
Keep going no matter what.
Exactly. And he tells the story of Kate Smith, the singer.
Okay.
Yeah, he says there were probably tons of other singers just as talented as her.
But they didn't make it.
Yeah, because
Ah.
they didn't have the persistence to keep going.
They gave up too soon.
Exactly.
So talent isn't everything.
Nope, you gotta have the grit to stick with it.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then Hill talks about the 6 basic fears.
It's basic fears. Okay.
Yeah, fear of poverty, fear of criticism, fear of ill health.
Fear of loss of love, fear of old age, fear of death.
Yeah, all the big ones.
Yeah.
And he says, you gotta master these fears if you want to be successful.
You can't let fear control you.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
And then he adds a 7th fear, which he calls susceptibility to negative influences.
Susceptibility to negative influences.
Yeah, basically you gotta protect your mind from negativity.
So be careful who you listen to.
Exactly.
Surround yourself with positive people.
Yeah. And then he ends by reminding us that there's a lot of opportunity out there.
Especially in America.
Yeah, we have access to so much.
Food, shelter, education.
Yeah, but he warns against trying to get something for nothing.
You got to give value to receive value.
Exactly. And he says the only way to get rich is by helping other people.
So it's all about service.
Yeah. And he ends with this really powerful message.
Okay, what's that?
He says you can achieve anything you set your mind to.
That's inspiring.
Yeah, and he says America gives you the opportunity to do just that.
So it's up to us to make the most of it.
Exactly.
So after all that, what's the secret?
Well, I think the secret is that there is no one secret.
It's a combination of things.
Yeah. It's about having a definite purpose,
Mm-hmm.
believing in yourself, being persistent, working hard, and helping others.
The whole way of life.
Yeah, and I think the real question is, which of these principles resonates with you the most?
Yeah, what speaks to you?
And what can you do today to start applying it to your life?
It's about taking action.
Yeah, what's your invisible ingredient going to be?
Yeah, that's a good question to think about.
Yeah, think about it.